Hey guys, welcome to part 3. In this video, let's go ahead and continue. So this is where we left off in part 2. We finished modeling our Santa, and the next step is going to be, I was asked on my channel to please show how to take a zBrush character and then use Maya instead to do the retopology and the UVs, and then go into Substance Painter. Obviously, that's going to be a little more time consuming because this is, zRemesher would be automated and it would take us probably just a couple minutes versus doing it manually. But someone wanted to see it, so I am totally fine with it. Let's go ahead and show a manual approach of creating perfect topology for the Santa and see what is the process it would take. And obviously, I'm doing Santa, but you can of course do it with any character. So, learning the workflow I think is really important. Anyway, so let's continue. So right now we have all these different subtools. I have all these different layers, right? There is no reason why I need to keep all of these separate, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna merge the Santa into one piece, and I'm just gonna go to merge, and let's just do merge visible, right? I'm gonna click on that button. That's going to give me a merge Santa, and you can see what that looks like. He's 4.5 million points. That's a lot of points. Now, if you take something like this and you import it into Maya, what would be the benefit of using it at such high resolution? 2.5 million points is completely insane and useless, right? There's no reason why the geo has to be this high, even if we want to retain the high-res version. What I'm going to do is I'm going to decimate this, and let's get it down to maybe at least 1 million. That would be a little more practical. So I'm going to go to Z plugin, and let's go to find the decimation master, and I'm going to do pre-process current. I'm going to click on that button, and let's wait till it runs through. All right, so once it's done, I'm going to leave it by default at 20% and just do decimate. When I press decimate, you should see your number go from, mine went from 2.5 million down to 500,000 points. And you can see that nothing has changed visually. Visually, he looks exactly the same. You can't see any difference whatsoever. And if I turn on the polyframe, you can see that there's still a lot of points, but we just went from 2.5 million to 499,000, which is a lot better. And let's go ahead and roll with this as a high-res version, okay? So the next step is going to be to bring this into Maya and then use the retopology tools in there to create kind of a low poly wireframe for this, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna go ahead and export this, and you're welcome to export it as an OBJ or FBX. Doesn't really matter, it's totally up to you. But the only thing that matters, I'm gonna say Santa, and I'm gonna say hi, right? So I'm gonna do Santa underscore hi. All right, and that's gonna be great. I'm gonna say save. Next, let's go ahead and jump into Maya. All right, here I'm in Maya. I'm gonna go to File, Import. I'm gonna find my OBJ file and just import it into Maya. You can see what that looks like. It comes in as a tiny little model, right? Because the scaling or the units are very much different in Maya versus versus ZBrush, right? Now, couple things, right? One of the things is we definitely, if we use the tools in here, we definitely want to change the scale of this and make it larger. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to press spacebar, and obviously you can see he's floating below the ground. I don't like that, so I'm going to move it onto the ground. Right? Let's just make him stand on the floor. Another thing I can do is, I can press D, hold down the D, and press X, hold down the X. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to snap this down, my pivot point, to the floor. Okay? And that is going to allow me to use scale. So now I can use scale. And let's go into the channel box, and let's increase the scale by, let's try 20 at first. I'm going to press enter and see if that's a little bit better. And you can see the character kind of jumps up, and he fits the environment a lot better than being tiny, right? I think that's going to be better, because then all the tools should work properly in Maya. Now I'm going to press Shift A to make sure he focuses in every single viewport. Hover over this one, press spacebar, and let's just go in here and take a look. All right, so this is going to be our high-res version. As you know, for us to create textures or move forward with rigging or animating or anything like that, we cannot use this high density model, right? That's just way too many points. And you can see the face count is just crazy, right? It's almost a million, 998,000 faces. Now, what we need to do is create a low poly version of this, right? And then use that for animation or rigging. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select this guy, and we increased his scale by 20. So I am going to come here and do a freeze transformation. And that's going to freeze the Y value because we moved him up, and it's going to reset the scale to 1, right? So now this is high. This high-res version is going to be with these new values, right? I can also select it and clear my history if I wanted to. We didn't really do much, so it's not that important. But the reason you want to do this is because now this high version needs to be in the exact same position and scale as the low one in order for us to bake our textures in Substance Painter, right? They have to be in the same space in order for this to work. So that's important, right? Now what we want to do is we want to export this one out and override the other OBJ to make sure that we have the proper one as a high one. So I'm going to go to File, say Export Selection. I'm just going to select my Santa High OBJ. Again, you can use FBX if you want. I'm just using OBJ. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to say Export and say yes. All right, awesome. The next thing we should do is probably save our document. I'm going to go to File, do Save As. Let's just give it a name. I'm going to call it Santa. And now my document is called Santa and I'm ready to work, right? So what is the process of creating a low poly topology for this? What I'm going to do is I'm going to select this, come up here and turn this little button on called this little magnet. Once I click on it, you can see that it's now live. My model is live, but I can select it. And essentially what that means is that I can use these awesome tools. So I'm going to go to poly modeling and I'm going to come here to quad draw. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to manually use quad draw to trace this model and create custom topology. And essentially all I need to do is create, you know, like the beard is asymmetrical, right? It's not symmetrical. And maybe the belt, the buckle here. But if you think about it, and the head, of course, but many elements are symmetrical, like his face, you know, his mustache, his arms, his legs, right? So technically we could just create half of it and then flip it over. So what would be the process of doing that? So maybe let's start with the shoes and kind of move up, right? So starting with the shoes, what you want to do, you want to select this tool here, quad draw. And what that's going to allow you to do is going to allow you to click on it and start placing grid right on your mesh. If you do 4 points, hold on the Shift key, and then click in between, you can see that it's going to allow you to custom design your grid and edge flows and all of that. So the benefit of doing this versus using, you know, zBrush, zRemesher, right, is that you have full control. You literally manually, one by one, putting down the topology. And this is going to allow you to create perfect, you know, essentially AAA quality model, right? Because you are carefully choosing each point. And that is the benefit of doing it this way. The downside, of course, it's going to be incredibly time consuming, right? But it's going to be clean and perfect and wonderful, right? So you just have to decide what are you making and how important is this character. Does it need to be, you know, the highest possible quality, or, you know, is it good enough to use zRemesher? So it's totally up to you. But essentially, once you put down the points, you can move them around. You can also hold on the Shift key and smooth this out, and you can see how it's kind of smoothing and trying to hug the area. So all of those are really important things. If you wanted to see what tools you can use with the quad draw, you can go into something called Modeling Toolkit. And in here, you can see that quad draw is selected. But right here, there's a really useful little section called Keyboard and Mouse Shortcuts. If I open that up, you can see all the shortcuts that are available to me. And you can try each one and see which one makes sense to quickly, speed up your workflow, right? So, for example, if I want to move these around, I can do that. And let's just see if we can use some of this as we move forward. I'm probably not going to do all this in real time because that's going to be crazy and long and unnecessary. But let's just do a little bit, and then maybe the rest we can just fast forward. But keep moving forward. Let's just do this whole shoe right here, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep making the little grid. And then you might ask yourself, how do I know how big the grid should be? That's a great question for someone who's new. And the whole concept of this is to create just enough faces where it holds the shape without distorting it too much, right? So you just kind of have to decide what that is as far as the resolution. Obviously, the smaller the boxes are, if I make the boxes this small, that's like 4 times more work than this one, right? Because the larger the panel, obviously, the faster I can cover the mesh. So I'm gonna undo that. But at the same time, you don't want to make them too large because then obviously they're not going to hold the shape well, right? So if I make something, this big and try to do that, well, yeah, I could do it faster, but now it's not really hugging the surface very well, and the the model is not going to read well, right? So again, at the end of the day, it's just a artistic preference of you just have to, at the end of the day, you just have to kind of decide what makes sense and what is, what type of character are you building? Are you building something super low poly, or are you building something very high resolution? So all of those are important questions to take into consideration. Right now, right here, you can see I'm already starting to look a little sloppy, right? This doesn't look pretty, right? So I can hold on the Shift key, go through and check this out. I can just literally just smooth this out and create beautiful topology, right? Look how nice this looks versus, something that I had before, right? It's very clean and perfect. And I would even argue that this is probably even nicer than zRemesher because you can even control your edge flows. You can control every aspect of this. All right, so that's fun. Let's keep going. Let's keep going around. And if I wanted to, another thing I could do, instead of clicking next to the faces and holding down the Shift key and doing that, you can also pull these out. So for example, if you look on the right here, it says Tab and middle mouse button, right? To drag to extend the border edge loop. So let's try that. If I come over here, hold down the Tab key and middle mouse button, you can see that it's going to drag this entire section all at once. And that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing, because then sometimes you just have to make sure, that you adjust the edge flow and make sure that it works with the shape, right? But that is a good way to speed up the process as well. If I wanted to delete something, I can do, you can read right here, right? If you want to delete something, you can do Control, Shift, and left click. So if I do Control, Shift, you should see this little X show up, like a little yellow box. And then, of course, if you click on it, it's going to delete that, right? So you can do that. You can also delete an entire edge. You can see that turns yellow with an X, right? So that's really cool. So that's how you could clean this up. But essentially, you want to take your time, put on some good music, and just go around the entire mesh and just literally lay down the low poly wireframe for the mesh. And there's really no magic about it, right? This is why most people avoid it or use zRemesher, because this is going to be kind of the long process to do it properly, right? But again, some artists find it kind of fun, and as long as you're just listening to something, a podcast or something, you can kind of zone out and very carefully just go through your mesh and have an amazing result, right? The more time you put into something, the better it's going to look, right? If I just literally baby each point, right, of course I'm going to end up with something gorgeous and perfect. And as you're building it, the only other thing that's really important is going to be the fact that you have to think about the fact if you are creating a model that's going to deform, right, you want to put down things on the mesh that make sense as far as the deformation goes. So what does that mean? If I come over here, for example, and I know that this right here is going to be the place of where the shoulder bends, well, if that's the case, obviously what I'm going to need is I'm going to need to create loops, right, that go around. So then when I bend the mesh has a way to bend properly, right? So you want to create kind of loops that are supporting the fact that the mesh is going to bend. So that's really important to understand, right? So maybe like on the part where the shoulders are, or the arms are, or even the wrists, you want to make sure you have these loops going all the way around, right? And that's going to be really important. And then if you get away from the deformation elements, then of course you can increase the sizes of the box because now you're just, again, trying to hold the shape, but you know that it's not going to be deforming as much, right? Maybe he'll have like a jiggly belly, but he's not going to be folding his shoulders. So all of that is really important as you're creating your low poly frame, right? If I wanted to insert an edge, I can hold on the control key and you can see a little line appears and I can click on it to insert something. So that's going to be an option as well. You can always do that, right? If that's something you want to do. If you accidentally put down a bunch of dots and you're not really sure, why they're not connecting, or maybe you have too many of them, or you're just seeing extra dots floating around, keep in mind you can always come up here and say clear dots, and that's going to delete any green dots that have not been yet formed into a polygon, right? So that's important as well. All right, now since you know kind of the basics, again, there's really no magic. Let me go fast forward and let's just go ahead and see what it would take to maybe flip some of the geometry as we're creating it. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the bottom of his leg here. Another thing that I want to say is if you by accident maybe get it to the point where you can't work on a certain area, maybe I really want to work on this area right here, but I'm having a really hard time zooming in or getting back into it. Maybe I zoomed out somewhere by accident, right? Keep this in mind. What you can do is you can switch back to your selection and then just simply, let's say you want to select this face because that's the area that I want to work in. Then what I can do is I can press F to zoom in into that area, right? Kind of focus on this area. And now what I can do is using the middle mouse scroll, right? I can zoom out, get it to the point where I like it. Right click on it, go back into object mode. And then while this is still being selected, just jump back into the quad draw tools. And now if you hold on the Alt key, you can see that it's going to pivot around this area, right? Allowing me to focus. So you have full control over which areas you are zooming in and out, and that's a cool, clever way to jump around. So keep that in mind. Maybe that's going to be helpful as well. Now, another thing that's really important is if you wanted to, you can also press Tab and you can literally just drag, right, certain parts of the strips if you want to lay them down that way. That's also very useful. And then if you want to change the size of the grid, you can hold on the Tab key and then middle mouse button to change the size of it. So maybe I want to make it a little bit smaller or larger. I could do that, right? And once I choose the size again, I can hold on the Tab key, hold the tab down, and then click the left mouse button and just lay down the actual grid, right? So that's going to be another useful way to add to your framing, right? You can do that as well. So it's up to you, you know, if you want to lay them down individually or if you want to take advantage of the tab key and just kind of drag it, right? As I'm doing this connection by the leg, it's sometimes really difficult to find the right snap, right? It's gonna kind of, if you hold on the shift key and you're trying to, for example, I'm trying to connect this grid, this block here, holding down the shift key, it's not really finding it. One thing that I found useful is if you hold on the tab key and just drag this out, it's a lot easier to control, right? You can even drag it just a little bit and then take these points right here that are created and just kind of snap them automatically to where you need it to be, right? So just a quick little tip, if you're struggling at some pieces that are kind of hard to get to, right? Another thing is, instead of to extend this border over to here, I can hold on the tab key and just drag this out, and you can see it's going to start covering it, right? Now I can get in there and manually move this point, right? I can just kind of drag it right onto the surface. Holding down the shift key, I can connect it to this one. And if I wanted to connect these two here, right? Keep in mind, you can always adjust them, right? Hold on the shift key, make a connection. I'm also fine with using some of these to be triangles, especially in these kind of tricky areas. And it's definitely not a problem. And now you can see how I just created kind of like this flow of geometry going from his leg over to this fur piece, right? So it's a little bit of a fight, but if you use the tab key, you can just kind of drag the pieces onto the other surfaces, and that should totally work. To create that indentation right there, what I can do is I can hold down the tab key, then middle mouse button, and pull this whole thing down way past that point, right? So essentially bypassing that entire ridge, and pull this all the way down. And now what I can do is, now I can just go through and adjust it, make sure it makes sense all the way around, just kind of touching the bottom of the sole of the shoe, just all the way around, right? So I did that pretty much automatically, very quickly. And once I adjust all of these, what I can do is I can go in and add or insert an edge for this, right? So remember, we can hold down the control key and we can just simply insert, right, an edge going all the way around. So I'm going to click on that, and that's going to give me that groove that I need, right? And that's going to actually hug the bottom border, and then this one is the top. So essentially now, if I adjust this and just make sure it's somewhat even, right? I'm going to have this going all the way around. And now all I need to do to create that border inside is I can jump out of the quad draw, and check this out. I can select this. I can click on this little button right here to isolate it, right? So I can see what I'm doing. And essentially, if I right click on it and go to face mode, click on this face, double click on this whole entire edge, what I need to do is I need to just extrude this inside, right? That would be the easiest way to do it. So to do that, I can click on extrude. And now using the blue axes, I can just literally just pull this in and create, you know, kind of a similar border to what I had in zBrush. And now that's going to be close enough for me to have that ridge instead of manually going through and building it, right? So that's definitely a way around it, right? Now to bring everything back, I can jump out of the isolate mode, select this mesh once again, and then click on quad draw to go back into that quad draw mode. And now you can see what I did, right? I automatically created all of that detail there without needing to, you know, do it one by one, right? You can go through and just make sure you adjust it if you have something kind of a similar, but that was a really clever way to automate that, right? Okay, so the next thing, once you get it to the point where you created the low poly for, let's say in this case, most of the right side, right? Obviously, now what I need to do is just simply take all of this and copy it to the other side, right? How do I do that? Especially if I have maybe other elements present, right? So what I need to do is I'm going to need to double click on this. If you have other elements present, you obviously need to separate them from each other, right? So what I could do is I can go to mesh and I can separate. And now if I click on this little button, you can see now I have two meshes. I have the bottom one and I have the top one. So just in case that's a thing for you as well, keep in mind you can easily separate them and make sure they are not connected, right? Now it's just as easy as taking this and mirroring it to the other side. So I can even use this mirror button right here. So if I click on that, that's going to ask me, do you want to mirror on X, on Y? I don't. I want to mirror it on X, right? So that's what I want. Do we want to bridge borders? We can say yes to that. That's going to give us some kind of a connection there. If you have a gap in between there, don't worry. All you need to do is just simply go back into, I'm going to go back into this selection mode. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this piece, hold on the shift key, select this piece, and I'm going to click on this button here to combine everything as one, as we had before. And I can even clear my history here, clear by type. Now you can see what I've done. I copied this over, but I maintained, I created this to be back as one mesh, which means if we select this, we can go back into quadro mode. And now we automatically have all of this work kind of done for us, right? We can even hold on the shift key and smooth this out and just kind of make sure this works and feels well, feels good, right? We could do that. We can go all the way around, and that was pretty easy to do, right? Kind of automatically. So that is sort of the workflow that you would have to do for the rest of the character, just going through and you know, you can mirror any pieces that are exactly the same, like the arms, and then anything that's unique, you just have to kind of do it separately. But then you'll end up with a perfect clean wireframe that you manually put down, and you are in full control. So this piece right here, of course we only did the legs so far. Let's check this out. If I select this, if I select my high one and press H and then select this one, you can see that the total poly count for this is just 1200 faces, which is incredibly clean and super simple, right? Obviously, when I made the bridge, it also bridged the top. I don't really want that. I don't want any of these to be bridged, so I can hold on the shift key and select all of this geometry here. Honestly, I don't want that to be bridged, right? So let's go ahead and just simply press delete. We don't want that to be closed off because we're going to continue growing that up the character, right? Let's go ahead and jump out of isolate, click on this, press H, bring everything back, and now I can go back into quad mode and just continue drawing it, right? But you can see the benefits of it. The benefit of it is it's just super clean and low poly. All right, now since you know what it takes to create the low poly wireframe using the quad draw, I want to let's think outside the box, right? What if we wanted to speed this up? What would be a possible merge of different workflows to benefit of zRemesher and at the same time using quad draw? So I'm gonna level this up a little bit, right? Let's get fancy. Check this out. This is one way I could do it, obviously, as I'm gonna delete this top piece here, but I can continue doing this as I was doing it, and that's gonna give me a beautiful, great result. But let's say I want to, I change my mind and now I want to merge a couple different techniques. I want to use quad draw and zRemesher at the same time. How could I do that? So if you are not interested in knowing that, just continue doing as we've been doing. Just go all the way up to the character and finish him that way. If you want to get super fancy, let's get super fancy. What I'm going to do is check this out. I have this one. Which I can now, you know, if I wanted to, I can call it low. I'm going to click on this one, and the reason it's green in Maya is because it's activated as a live object, right? If I turn this magnet off, the quad draw will stop working, and you can see this is no longer green, right? And I know this is going to be my high one, right? Let's go ahead and jump out of the magnet. Let's save this. And now, for whatever reason, I changed my mind. I want to use zRemesher, right? Now, because we changed the scale of this high-res version, remember we added the scale and the position, we must take this and re-import it back into ZBrush if we wanted to use zRemesher. So what do I mean? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this, and we already exported out as an OBJ, right? We've done that in the first part of the video. So make sure you've done that. And now if I wanted to, check this out, I can jump back into ZBrush. And I don't want to use this, right? Because again, we changed this. So this merged one is useless to me because it's the wrong scale. So what I'm going to do is you can create a new scene if you wanted to. I'm just going to simply go to import and override this one with this other one that we exported out of Maya. I'm going to say open. And you can see it's definitely much, much larger. So I'm going to press F to zoom in. And you can see that now it's off scale as far as the proportions go in ZBrush because he's scaled to Maya, right? But that doesn't really matter. Let's keep it in kind of a Maya units. And what I want to do is I want to see if I can take advantage of zRemesher and continue doing low retopology, but doing it in here. So I'm going to turn on my polyframe and do auto groups, right? It's going to show me which elements are separate, obviously. And what I can do is, let's say I want to take this jacket and I want to automatically use zRemesher. So I can do Control Shift and click to isolate everything, go to split and do split hidden. Now my jacket is going to be by itself, so I can even hide the rest of it, right? Let's say I want to take this and I want to zRemesh this automatically. I'm going to turn on my active symmetry and I'm going to go to geometry, and under zRemesher, let's turn adapt off and switch this to like 1, right? And I am not going to do anything else. I'm just going to leave it just like this. And we could split it into groups if we wanted to, but let's just see what this gives us. Super simple, right? I'm just going to do zRemesh. All right, it's going to give me something along these lines. It's going to be about 2,000 points, but you can see the topology is very clean and, you know, somewhat useful. I really don't see a reason why something like this can't be used as a game model. Let's say you like this, right? I didn't literally do anything. I just set it to 1. What I could do is I can take this and I can export this back out into Maya and combine it with the other one. So what does that mean? So check this out. If I have this selected, I can go to export. And now instead of the Santa high, right, let's do Santa low underscore body, right? That's going to be his body piece. I'm going to say save. Now if I go back into Maya, in here, if I simply select, go to File, Import, and import my Santa low body, just import it in here, you can see that now, let's go ahead and select it and we can see what that looks like. I can obviously rename it if I wanted to, doesn't really matter. But now I have this and I have this. Now if I hold on the Shift key, I can see that they are, this is what they look like together, right? Let's go into isolate mode for a minute and see if we like this, right? I think it's looking really good, and you can see how the grid is actually matching about the size of what we did manually. So the reason I'm showing you this is because it's a really powerful understanding that you don't have to get stuck in one program all the way. You can actually mix them and use them together, right? So if I select this, for example, let's isolate it. We see that we have all this extra geometry that is not going to be used or seen. So hold down the Shift key. I can, for example, take this whole loop, press delete, double click on this, delete, right? I don't really need any of that geometry. So let's say I can clean that up. Let's jump out of the isolate and take a look. And you can see, right, none of that deleted stuff can even be seen, right? So now what I could do is I can select this, the body one, hold on the Shift key, select the low one, and I can combine them into one, right? Let's go ahead and clear history. And now check this out. If we click on high, right, turn our magnet back on and go back into the body and turn on the quad, it looks like all of this work was done for us automatically, right? That's the power of zRemesher. Instead of manually going in and doing it like we did in the bottom, you know, you might ask yourself, like, why? You could just do, you can use the automated tools instead, and they look just as good and just as clean. And you can bring it in here and have a lot of, you know, a lot of control over how things are looking, right? So that was really cool. Again, what would be the reason I wouldn't do that with the rest of the pieces? I can't think of one. So let's go ahead and keep using this awesome workflow, right? Let's go ahead and do the rest of it. I'm going to go back into zBrush. And now since it's done and it's exported, we don't really even need it anymore, right? So let's go ahead and open this one. And we already did the legs, the shoes. So the next thing would be obviously maybe this fur, right? So I'm gonna hide this for a second, and let's just see what we could do. So let's next kind of take all the fur automatically, turn that into zRemesher as well, right? So I can do Control Shift and click on this, and I'm gonna click on it again to hide it, click on this one to hide it, and just essentially select all the fur. I know this is gonna be a fur, this one is gonna be a fur, and that's probably it, right? We didn't really do one on top. So that's great. Now I can go to split and do split hidden. That's going to separate all the fur on its own separate layer, right? Let's go ahead and hide the Santa. So now we have all of this. And same thing, why don't we just zRemesh this automatically? So I'm gonna go to geometry, go to zRemesher. Let's set this to 1. 1 seemed to be a good resolution. I'm gonna turn active symmetry on because this is clearly symmetrical. I'm going to leave adapt off. I don't really need it. So again, as I said before, adapt is used to create extra edges to hold a shape. But these shapes are so simple. We should be fine. And let's just do zRemesh. All right, and this is going to be the low poly version. And I think that's perfect. If you wanted to, you know, if you're creating something super low poly, like a mobile game character, and you wanted to optimize this further, keep in mind you can always use zModeler. Just hover over an edge, go to delete edge loop complete, and you can literally just delete some of these, right? If you want to clean this up. So lots and lots of control. You can do whatever you want. You can make it as low or as high as you want. But now let's say I want to take this and I want to bring it back into Maya. So we can piece by piece kind of steal all these elements and use them that way, right? So we can do that, or we can of course convert more, right? Maybe we should do that. Let's look at the belt and see if we can turn that into low poly. So I'm going to Control Shift and click on the belt. Let me turn this fur off, and this is the belt layer, which is fine. I'm going to go to split hidden. Let's put the belt on its own layer. And let's do the same thing. Let's try to zRemesh this, right? Go back to geometry. I'm gonna keep doing the 1. I think it seems to be working. I'll do 1. I'll do adapt off. This is symmetrical as well. I'll turn on the active symmetry, and let's go ahead. We could do detect edges if we want, because this does have a lot of sharp edges. And let's just do zRemesh. All right, you can see what that gave me. I feel like for a game model, this is still too dense. I'm gonna do half and do zRemesh. All right, I think this is honestly pretty much perfect. Now, keep in mind, we don't really need all of this inside geometry. No one's gonna see that, right? So we can delete it using zModeler. So I'm gonna go to delete, and let's go ahead and do delete in the polygon actions, and we'll do a loop, right? So that means I can come here and just literally click on these and delete all of these, right? I can turn double on if I wanted to see what I just did, but essentially I just deleted that whole loop because that geometry is, you know, again, somewhat useless, right? We don't even probably need this edge here, all of this. I'm going to hover over this edge and let's just click on that as well. We'll delete that because we can see on the top we don't even have one. And that looks pretty great to me, so I'm gonna keep it. Let's go to Subtool. Now we have, let's turn this on. So check this out, now we have both of these, the fur and the belt, all done automatically versus manually doing it with quad draw, right? That's pretty awesome, right? So let's go ahead and, we even have the body too. I forgot about the body. So all of this is done. It looks great, it looks clean, it's perfect. What's left? Let's go ahead and click on this. Hold on, I'm going to select this layer, hold on the shift key, hide everything else. Again, we don't need the legs, we did all that. So now we have kind of the head and the gloves, right? And this little piece here too. Which, if I turn this on, it looks like it's already low poly. So this piece right here doesn't need to be zRemeshed. Check this out. Look how low that is, right? So I'm going to Control Shift and click to isolate it. I'm going to do split hidden and put it on its own layer because he's done. And let's just take a look and let's just continue. Because this is already done in Maya, I can even delete it from here, right? I don't even need this here. So I can hold on the Control key, make a selection. Let's select all of that and let's do split masked. Take all of this and literally just press delete because we don't need it, it's done, right? All right, very cool. And now, now I'm left with these, and that's the only ones that haven't been zRemeshed yet, right? So I'm gonna do Control, select this one, do split on masked points, put it on its own layer, right? And now let's use the zRemesher. I'm going to go to Geometry, zRemesher. I'm going to keep doing the one, or you know what? I'm going to 0.5 because this is such a tiny little piece. Adapt off 0.5, and definitely leave this off because this is not symmetrical, right? So let's do zRemesh on this. And look how cool that is. It's automatic, right? It's so cool. Let's do half, do zRemesh, and we can see if we like this. All right, you know what? I'm gonna go with this one. I think if we needed to, we can create more edges if we need it for bends or whatever. But this seems like a better topology, right? So now what I can do is I can go to, let's go to Subtools. Let's duplicate it because we need two of them. And we'll mirror it, right? Now I can turn both of them on and I can see that I made two of them, right? That is great. Let's take all the pieces that we've done, and we already brought the body to Maya, so we don't need that anymore, right? So I can actually delete that one because that one is kind of done. We didn't export the belt or this little thing or the two gloves, right? So for that reason, and the fur, right? So for that reason, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of these and just keep them nice and organized. I'm going to merge them all down and merge them all into one layer, right? So all of these have been done, optimized, zRemeshed, they're ready to go. Let's go ahead and go into this one and take a look and see what else is left, right? So the entire head is not hasn't been done. So I'm going to do Control and select this one, and I'm going to go to Split. I'm going to do Split on mask points, and I don't need this anymore because we already did the glove, right? So I'm going to delete this layer. Say OK, and now I have just this left. Now instead of zRemeshing all of this at once, I think that's going to be a really bad idea, right? I think it's going to be better if we focus on each element individually. So what I propose we do is we should split this into similar parts, right? I think that's going to be the best solution. So let's go ahead and click on that button and say OK. That's going to give us all these different layers of the face or the head by themselves. But now it's going to give us a lot of control over how we can zRemesh this, right? So for example, I have this head here, and if I wanted to zero mesh this, I'm gonna go to geometry, and let's just do the same thing. I'm gonna go to 1, turn adapt off, and I am gonna make it symmetrical because this is symmetrical, and just do zRemesher. All right, you can see very quickly, I'm gonna get something that looks pretty awesome. And again, as much as I love quad draw, I think this is just much smarter. You know, it gave you the loops for the eyes, so you can blink them if you wanted to. You can see the topology is very clean, and the zRemesher in the you know, in the recent versions of zBrush is just pure magic. There's no reason why you don't want to use it, right? Now, because we do have the eyes in here, we don't really need all of that geometry in there. So let's delete it. I'm gonna go to delete, and we can just literally delete this whole, let's just get a little closer so we can see. But we can delete all of this here. Now, the reason that's not working is because this is a spiral, right? So to do that, to delete something, I'm gonna press Alt, make a selection, and I'm just gonna literally select and tell zBrush which faces I want to delete, right? None of these are going to be seen because, again, they're going to be behind an eyeball, so no one's going to see this geometry, so we don't need any of this, right? And you can see right here how it's spiraling out, right? So I'm going to stop right here. Now if I hover over a polygon action, go to delete single poly, I can just simply click on it and it's going to be deleted, right? And that's pretty great. I think that's exactly what I want. So if you got this far with me, let's just very quickly select each one and zRemesh it to your liking. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Alrighty guys, so I went through these and I just zRemeshed all of them same exact way. If I hold on the shift key and put everything back, you can see that these are the elements that we have not yet exported, right? So now what I can do is I can take all of them and I can literally just merge them all down into one layer, right? And that is going to be pretty awesome. Now if I turn the, let me turn the fill off. You can see that now I have really awesome, clean, low poly mesh that zRemesher gave me, and I didn't have to use quad draw, you know, to do it manually. So I just saved probably a few hours of my time easily. And in my opinion, you know, it's up to every artist to decide, but this topology right here is pretty great for being generated automatically. There's really no reason why you can't use some of these tools instead of doing it manually, right? But it's cool to know that you could do both. So I think that's really important to show, and that's what I'm doing here. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna export this out. I'm gonna call it Santa Low, and instead of calling it body, you know, let me call this head just so I know the difference. And now all of this is gonna be together. I'm gonna go back into Maya. All right, and in here, again, instead of manually doing quad draw, I can just take this, press H to hide it. Let's go ahead and just do file import, and here we go. So if I turn my polyframe on, you can see that now I have a low poly clean mesh, which is you know, 12,000 faces. This is pretty outstanding, right? That we could do all of that so easily. And now we have the low poly version and the high one if we wanted to bake our texture. So now, obviously, because I exported this out from zBrush, you can see some of this looks very facety, right? That doesn't look right. So we can select this. We can go to Mesh Display. We can do soft and hard edges. Let's set this by default, it's set to 30. Maybe I want to change this to maybe 80 and say apply, right? And now if I say close, you can see that my mesh looks much better. And this is how it would look in the game engine. So it's important that you smooth some of the edges, right? And that looks great. Now if you add some textures to this, he looks pretty great, right? All right, so I think in part 4, let's go ahead and create UVs for this character and then bring it into Substance Painter for some painting and PBR textures. Hopefully you got this far and you have kind of a somewhat similar results. And of course, we can take all of this here and combine it into one. There's no reason why it shouldn't be. And let's go ahead and clear our history. And now we have high, and we'll call this one a low, right? So we just created kind of a low poly version of our high-res Santa. All right, so thank you for watching me. If you, I would love to see if you wanted to post some of this work in progress in my newly created Discord channel. That would be pretty amazing to see people do some of this stuff. But either way, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in our next part, which is going to be part 4.